Yeah, and then I want to riff on that a little bit more, and especially because I know you and I think Inkle, the entire Inkle team is really good at events. And also, if you look at community building, right? I mean, on one end, you could be extremely lightweight, which is like not even have a group, right? You're literally doing content and just trying to coalesce people around some brand or some property or some idea. And then you, of course, you have private chats on WhatsApp or Slack. And then you have on the right side, I mean, like the truly intense, kind of very, very thematic dinners, mixers, right? And a lot of them in the Bay Area. How do you suggest, especially India-based founders at that kind of, I would say the zero to one stage, how should they look at that mix, right? Because everything has its own ROI, everything has its own kind of investment requirements, also from an effort perspective, because these founders, at the end of the day, at that stage, you're coding all the time, you're either building or selling. And so this a lot of times appears as, hey, is this a kind of a peripheral activity, right? So how should founders think about that?
Yeah, it's such an important thing. I honestly feel there's no one right answer, right? And what worked for us may not work for others because we're going after a very specific audience, which was US Delaware C corps with venture backing and high tech startups, right? So that was like and pre-seed, pre-formation, pre-seed, right? So and that too was cross-border in the early days. So it was kind of founders who didn't live in the US. So that was like a really specific niche audience, right? Which we could identify. Then it changed to being, just everything, as I said above, but just not cross-border anymore and just US. And so we went after a target niche, and I think we concluded that the best way to do that was actually to just be out here, right? And that's my strong advice to everyone. So I came to SaaS last summer with my team, and we did this whole string of events. It was a wonderful time to come September, October. SaaS Boomi Caravan, SaaSter, Dreamforce, YC Reunion, Techstars Reunion, TechCrunch Disrupt, Money 2020, kind of a Health Tech Week. There's a bunch of these kind of things that were happening, and I think it just really opened my eyes again because I hadn't really spent much time in San Francisco, right? At YC, after YC, I was in, for whole of YC, we were in Mountain View, right? And it's very, very, very different, right? And SF was experiencing this resurgence, and to be in the heart of it last summer, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know about all this. Like SF is really coming back up. I mean, there's a lot of problems here, of course, but it was really coming up, and I was like, I really have to be here, right? And just so happened that one of my team members was able to stay back, and so we thought, what, let's open a team here, a branch here. So we set up an office, had 3, 4 people here at any given time, and just really went to town, right? But we couldn't do all of that without capital or without revenue, right? And to your point, how do early stage founders do it? There is a way to do it from India, interestingly, and there are great examples. We are not actually interesting. One of them, other great examples of there for sure. For example, Sprinter, Rocket Lane, Spendo, and Spenflow, and others who've done a fantastic job just sitting in India, right, without any presence here. Now, of course, some of them have presences here, and I think that if I learn from them, the things that they did well was being able to do roundtables and dinners here with really a very diverse audience of folks, Western and Indian origin, and being able to execute those, and attract high quality audiences to those. So it's not just that though. When we came out, we started doing a lot of mixes, right? And we couldn't really afford to host all things. It's super expensive, and it costs you at least 5 grand, even more sometimes. So we always sought a partner, right? And partner with deep pockets, and we split it. We still had to contribute, of course, but it made sense. And then, interestingly, some of those actually led to like really incredible outcomes. One of them actually led to acquisition discussions. Others led to kind of deep partnerships which exist today. For example, recently we'd finally made massive headway with our biggest partner, one of our biggest partners, which is Brex. 2, 3 years ago, when I first approached them, it wasn't a very compelling thing to partner with Inkle. We were nobodies, but then finally we got to this kind of 10-point partnership now with them, which includes a perk in, a perk out, an event with them, a social media post, a blog, a case study, a webinar, an in-person mixer, an integration into Inkle Books, where we pull directly data data into Inkle Books. And we're listed on their preferred accountants page. And yesterday or a few days back, in fact, We launched the culmination of a very, kind of heavy, like efforts of partnering and building that relationship into, in the community, and people saw us, and then Brex appreciated that community effort more. And then I think that was what resulted in one big culmination for us, where you can now, and we were the first to build this, you can now redeem Brex points on Inkle, right? Which is interesting because they could have approached anyone else to build that, but they approached this small startup from Bangalore who was making a lot of noise here because we moved fast. They saw us in the community, they saw value, and it just made sense for their customers as well as ours. So that takes time. A small startup in Bangalore can't just achieve that. So I think the way to do it, to your point, is build, make noise, provide value, and try and do a lot remotely as much as you can through thought leadership and community, and then eventually these kind of things happen. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the Brex partnership story. In fact, one of the questions I had was, highlighting a key business outcome out of all the community building efforts, because this is again an apprehension I hear a lot, where a lot of founders tend to think of communities as almost in the brand marketing bucket, and they're like, look, I mean, yeah, it's a nice to have, and it looks cool and whatever, but like I need to grow my ARR month on month. And so, why am I spending time and money on all this stuff? And I think, to your point, I think this is kind of a great business outcome for Inkle.
Yeah, a lot of people say, events are a waste of time, and communities just, just what do you call it? It's very superficial and thought leadership. I don't agree with any of that. I mean, it can be a slippery slope, but you have to be careful and try to keep the business at the forefront and the customer at the forefront, frankly. And if you do that, and I think you can actually do it in a very meaningful way. We were very clear. The community was not for me to be a pompous, kind of, blow my own ego up and things like that. It wasn't like that. It was a chance for us to help our customers, right? And a chance for us to show value to our customers, and of course attract more customers and help more customers, right? So I think that when we took it with that approach and that lens, it just made a lot of sense, and it worked super well. And when people saw that we were adding value and tying up with big brand names, others approached. For example, JP Morgan Chase, one of the world's largest banks and most respected financial institutions, came and knocked on our door and did an event with us as well, and a partnership with us. So that kind of thing doesn't happen overnight. You kind of have to be visible, right? And you can do it without doing community and events and thought leadership, but it's kind of harder, and it probably will take longer. So.
Yeah, I mean, these are exactly the stories that I'm trying to bring out, especially for the US India founders. We recorded a podcast with the Spend4 team, and how beautifully they have used kind of curated events to drive GTM. And I think you are kind of, I would say, even more early stage. And so I think these are the case studies that need to come out, so that I think a lot of the US India founders can learn from. Hey, you can actually do US go to market with very limited resources, and in fact, I'm actually seeing that it's actually a very interesting competitive advantage. The kind of hustle that Indian founders are bringing to the table in terms of GTM in the US is like, it's phenomenal.
It's great. I know companies who have put, still 0 feet on the ground here, and are running their sales motion entirely from Bangalore overnight or asynchronously. We're doing something of that as well. I think it's super hard, but it's just amazing, no? Like, especially given the brutal 12.5 hour time difference, sometimes 13.5 hour time difference. It's crazy to think about it, that you're able to do that. And this is, there's some hacks. For example, you give salespeople some American name, and you some of them put on an accent and things like that. But interestingly, many of the best don't do any of that. They like, yeah, we're Indian, we're in we're in Bangalore, we're quite proud of it, and we're in somewhere in Chennai, and we're quite proud of it, and we've built amazing technology, and you should pay a premium for it, like you do in the US, right? And I think that's incredible just to see that happening from India. I'm just very proud of that, actually, and we've done it slightly differently. We've done a bit of that as well, but yeah, I think that there are multiple ways to do it. And to early stage founders, my suggestion is watch what others are doing for sure, but experiment, and kind of have to experiment fast, right? If your ACVs are big enough, then you can go after kind of this repeatable sales motion with salespeople. But if they're not, you need to find something where perhaps SMBs or startups, if that's your target, are able to find you or hear about you in a very scalable way and ramp that up. So there's different things that exist for different people.